Is mass immigration finally coming to an end? Is the West finally waking up? It's time for a reality check. Western nations have accepted millions of immigrants from all over the world with an open-door policy, but citizens are beginning to push back. The negative economic impact, housing shortage, and social division being worsened by mass immigration are very real, and liberal governments are finally being asked to slow down. In some cases, the people have simply said, enough is enough, while liberal politicians and media figures claim that Canadians, Brits, Americans, or Swedes have to accept an infinite amount of people from every nation on Earth. Citizens of all ethnic and religious backgrounds in many Western nations are beginning to question the mass immigration narrative. Not only is it economically destructive, mass immigration is having deeply disturbing social and political impacts as well. In this video, we're going to take a look at the truth about mass immigration and what Canada can learn from other open immigration countries that have changed their minds about keeping their doors open. Sweden is a good case study of a country with similar values to Canada. However, Sweden is changing its mind about mass immigration in a big way, and the amount of anti-mass immigration citizens is growing exponentially. Protests and policy changes are happening because mass immigration just isn't working and is leading to huge crime waves, economic stagnation, and social polarization. A previously peaceful nation, Sweden has recorded over 500 bombings since 2018, widespread gang shootings, and frequent violent riots in the streets. People don't feel safe the way they used to, and foreign-born immigrants live in areas which can be very dangerous for non-immigrants to enter. Homicides have risen sharply across the EU as immigration policy has allowed in millions of new individuals from around the world, particularly the Middle East and Africa. In the decade of 2012 to 2021, a whopping 41 million immigrants came into the EU, around 10% over 4 million illegally. Between 2012 and 2019, Sweden was taking in around 130,000 immigrants a year. That's a lot for a country of only 10.4 million people, and if the link between immigration and crime weren't clear enough, a stunning 58% of criminal suspects between 2002 to 2017 were immigrants. Sex assault rates in immigrant communities were 91% higher than in native-born communities. The Conservatives have been gaining power every year in Sweden's parliament, boosted by a growing share of the population who is sick and tired of open borders and areas of their cities turning into no-go zones. Stricter rules are being put in to make sure the country isn't lost to mass immigration. As Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson says, Sweden's past immigration rates are completely unsustainable, and these new rules are a paradigm shift to address the problems of mass immigration. According to most recent polls, only about 42% of Swedes believe that their country should be more open to immigration, a much lower rate than the vast majority who welcomed refugees in 2015. At that time, Syrian refugees became the largest group in Sweden, displacing the previously large group of Finnish immigrants. This year, Sweden plans to let in only 900 refugees, a huge step down from the 5,000 minimum a year they've been letting in since 2018, and the hundreds of thousands per year they were letting in before that. As former Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson from the left-wing Social Democrats even admitted, lack of many immigrants becoming part of Swedish society has contributed to gang violence and crime waves, particularly in North African and Middle Eastern neighborhoods in cities like Stockholm and Gothenburg. Around 20% of Sweden is foreign-born due to its highly liberal immigration policy since the 1970s, but the rise of the country's crime wave and declining economic states have people fed up with an open-doors policy on immigration. Sweden's economy has been in recession, and less consumer spending over the past few years make it one of the slowest growing economies in the EU. Sweden initially struggled to house the 160,000 asylum seekers it allowed in 2015 alone during the refugee crisis, but budgets were pumped up with massive spending to make space. High numbers of refugees and immigrants since that time were housed due to high spending, but the unsustainability of that, coupled with the negative social effects, are part of what's led to the backlash against mass immigration. Can you really blame Swedish people and its new government coalition for putting their foot on the brakes? Germany is another example of a nation with similar liberal values to Canada, which is in the middle of turning away from a mass immigration mindset. Germany's experience is similar to Sweden, except that it still has less of a strong movement against mass immigration and is not quite at the level of public awareness that Sweden is. Many Germans are tired of having an open-door policy too, with Chancellor Olaf Scholz recently announcing that those who don't have a right to stay in Germany will be deported deported on a large scale, partly to ensure that the country is still available for those immigrants who are actually in danger and in need of somewhere to live, not just to live off the social safety net and make money. As Germany's Interior Minister Nancy Faeser says, faster deportations is partially so that Germany can help the smaller number of refugees and migrants who are actually in danger, rather than the masses who are coming just to live off the social safety net or get a passport. Germany has absorbed over 1 million people who have fled Russia's invasion of Ukraine, along with around 300,000 applications from people from other countries this year alone. It already has over 200,000 in the country who are supposed to be deported but haven't been yet, which is part of why Scholz and others are making moves to speed up the deportation process. It's also because mass immigration is hurting the economy. The German nation has one of the most generous welfare states in the world, helping low-income people and immigrants afford a place to live and basic necessities. But contrary to the idea that more immigrants will fill skilled labor shortages in Germany, the truth is that 1 in 7 Germans under 32 are Muslim, and 80% of these individuals are on welfare. This includes some second and third generation Turkish Germans, but also vast amounts of immigrants from Muslim nations in the past several decades. How is this helping Germany's economy? Answer: it's making it worse and bleeding the productive and prosperous economic powerhouse dry. In fact, the income of wealth-producing Germans is actually being redistributed to non-productive Germans who came to get freebies from its welfare state. Attitudes are certainly changing, with the once marginal 1% support Alternative for Germany AfD party, which is against mass migration, now polling at 22% nationally. Then let's take a look at Poland, a more conservative country which has been opposed to mass immigration from the start and was skeptical about taking in many refugees. Polish people's opposition to mass immigration is very clear. 88% are against accepting migrants from Africa and the Middle East, 86% from India, 84% from the Caucasus, Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, and 82% from South America. Even Christians from Asia are not wanted in Poland, with as many as 79% of Poles surveyed being against welcoming them. Even 60% of Poles surveyed said they were against taking in more Ukrainians, although as of 2023, there were 490,000 Ukrainians in Poland. The second and third place immigration groups in Poland are 104,000 Belarusians and 24,000 Georgians. There are around 18,000 Indians and 18,000 Russians as well. The total migrant population of Poland is around 1.6%. Polish people's opposition to most immigration might sound too strict to some, but let's look at the facts. How is Poland doing economically and socially? Poland is growing the fastest among the EU economies, with a whopping 2.7% projected GDP growth for the coming fiscal year. Crime has been steadily decreasing over the past decades, and it has one of the lowest murder rates in the world. It's a prosperous, safe, and culturally unified country that doesn't much want to change how things are and let in millions of people from other non-Polish or non-European countries. So what lessons do these countries have for Canada when it comes to mass immigration? The answer is quite a lot. If Canada wants to turn things around and start doing better, it needs to start paying attention to the experience of these nations that have decided to get stricter on immigration. To be sure, Canada likes to think of itself as a multicultural country where all immigrants are welcomed with open arms. But the truth about mass immigration isn't quite so pretty. In fact, the open-door policy of welcoming in massive amounts of people from all over the world every year is contributing to an economic and social crisis. But unlike Sweden, where the anti-mass immigration movement is strong, or Germany, where it's growing rapidly, and Poland, where it's already strong, Canada is still at the very beginning of people waking up to the problem that's occurring. Canada is the most pro-immigration country on the planet, with 58% of Canadians last year in a poll saying that the country still should have more immigrants. That number has changed, and more Canadians are concerned about how mass immigration will affect housing and healthcare. But Canadian politics still has a lot of catching up to do. In fact, all political parties in Canada have made it clear that they support more immigration, including Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, who said, "It doesn't matter if your name is Poilievre or Patel, Martin or Mohammed. You can achieve your dreams in this country." The number of people living in Canada went up 1 million in 2022, 98% of which was from net international migration. Since Trudeau announced immigration would be a key focus, Canada has risen to taking in around 500,000 new immigrants per year from everywhere in the world. Ottawa has spent $269 million on hotels and meals for refugees and illegal immigrants in 2023 alone. Meanwhile, Canada has the worst housing shortage in the G7 countries. Most ordinary people can't afford a home, and healthcare wait time is so bad that Canadians are now dying while waiting in hospital ERs. The country is going to a very dark place, and it needs to learn from places like Poland and Sweden, which have decided that mass immigration is not the answer. Here's the bottom line, and it's one that Ottawa should be paying close attention to. It is possible to be a compassionate and open nation without inviting in everybody who shows up on your shores and fills out an application to immigrate. Canada desperately needs to learn this lesson before the economic and social effects of mass immigration become too destructive to undo. If you like this video and want to learn more about Canada, check out this video here. And if this video brought value to you today, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing the video. Thanks for watching.